Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today we are going to take a deep dive into the 1980 Jefferson nickel, also known as the 5-cent coin, minted in Denver in the year 1980. This coin might look like just another piece of change that passed through millions of American hands, but as we will discover, it carries a fascinating history, important details collectors should know, and even the potential for surprising value that in some cases can climb into the tens of thousands of dollars. First, let us begin with a bit of background. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. The design was created by Felix Schlag, and it has remained one of the most iconic United States coin designs for decades. The obverse shows the left-facing portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, while the reverse shows his famous home Monticello. The 1980 series is part of that long line of Jefferson nickels. Now focusing on the 1980 mint mark, this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, where hundreds of millions were produced. In fact, the mintage exceeded 676 million pieces, which makes it a common date in circulation. However, what makes the 1980 nickel interesting to collectors is not just the large mintage, but the survival of coins in high condition and the presence of certain errors and varieties that can make them extremely valuable. Most examples you find in pocket change will be worth just 5 cents, maybe slightly more to a casual collector. But when we talk about condition, rarity comes into play. Coins that have survived for over 4 decades without significant wear, especially those graded mint state 65 or higher by professional grading services, can start to bring in premium prices. For example, a bright uncirculated 1980 nickel with full steps on Monticello, which means the lines on the steps are fully struck and visible, can sell for hundreds and even thousands of dollars because full step designations are much scarcer. In fact, one of the highest auction results for this coin came when a pristine mint state example with full steps was sold for over $4,000, showing just how desirable quality is in the coin collecting world. While not every coin will achieve that level, there are still opportunities to find coins that carry significant value beyond face. Collectors also keep an eye out for striking errors and planchet errors on the 1980 nickel. Examples of off-center strikes, double die obverse or reverse, broad strikes, and clipped planchets have all been reported. Error coins always carry collector interest because they are unique and no two are exactly alike depending on the error type and eye appeal. Some can bring in anywhere from $50 to several $100s. So how does this all relate to the claim that a 1980 nickel can be worth $74,888? Well, in the world of numismatics, top pop coins, meaning the very finest known examples graded by services like PCGS or NGC, can command astronomical prices when competitive registry set collectors want them. If only 1 or 2 flawless coins exist with perfect strike, luster, and full steps, then the bidding war can drive prices into the tens of thousands, even for a coin that is otherwise considered common. So yes, under the right conditions, this coin can indeed reach values in the $74,000 range, but such results are extremely rare and reserved for only the very best examples. When we talk about market value today, average circulated 1980 nickels are only worth face value maybe 10 to 20 cents to a collector buying in bulk. Higher grade uncirculated examples without full steps can range from $1 to $10. Coins with strong eye appeal and certified by grading companies can fetch between $20 and $100, and those elusive full step examples in high mint state can bring in hundreds to thousands. The absolute top population pieces, the finest known, can soar into the tens of thousands. This shows the importance of checking your change carefully. If you come across a 1980 nickel in good condition, it is worth taking a closer look. You might not be holding a $74,000 treasure, but you could still have a coin worth far more than 5 cents, and for collectors, the thrill of the hunt and the history behind each piece makes it even more valuable. So to wrap it all up, the 1980 Jefferson nickel is a common coin with a fascinating backstory. Most are only worth face value, but condition, rarity, full steps, and errors can drastically increase value, and in extremely rare cases the finest known examples have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. If you want to know whether your coin is valuable, examine the strike, check the steps on Monticello, look for errors, and consider sending it for grading. The Jefferson nickel series remains popular, and the 1980 is a key example of how modern era coins can still surprise collectors with unexpected value. We are diving into one of the most fascinating coins in modern American numismatics, the 1982 Jefferson nickel, a coin that at first glance seems ordinary but under the surface carries a remarkable history and surprising value that continues to attract collectors from all over the world. The Jefferson nickel has been around since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it quickly became one of the most circulated coins in the United States. The design by Felix Schlag featured the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his home Monticello on the reverse. This design remained largely unchanged for decades, which is why the 1982 P nickel often goes unnoticed by the casual collector, but serious numismatists know that this particular year and mint mark can hold incredible worth. Let's first talk about the context of 1982. The United States Mint in Philadelphia struck millions of nickels during this period. However, the minting process was not perfect. Certain errors and varieties occurred, creating coins that today are worth far more than face value. One of the biggest reasons collectors hunt the 1982 P nickel is because of errors like double dies, weak strikes, off-center mintings, and other minting mistakes. When these errors occur, they transform what would otherwise be a 5-cent coin into a piece worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on rarity, condition, and demand. Another important factor in determining value is the condition of the coin. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to perfect mint state, with grades like fine, very fine, extra fine, and mint state. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. For example, a heavily circulated 1982 P nickel might only fetch a few cents or $1, but in mint state with sharp details and full luster it can be worth dozens of dollars. And when you get into rare grades like MS66 or higher, the price can skyrocket. Now here's where things get interesting. Certain examples of the 1982 P nickel have been sold in auctions and private sales for surprising amounts. Collectors have paid big money, especially for error coins and those in pristine condition. In today's market, some of the most desirable examples are valued at over $62,888. Yes, you heard that right, a 5-cent coin reaching a market value above $62,000. That is the magic of numismatics. Rarity combined with collector demand can elevate pocket change into a fortune. So why would someone pay that much for a nickel? The answer lies in the combination of scarcity, error, variety, and condition. When all three factors come together, the coin becomes more than currency. It becomes a historical artifact, a work of art, and an investment piece at the same time. Remember too that the early 80s were a turbulent time for coinage. The mint was experimenting with dies and production methods, which means certain years, including 1982, produced anomalies, and those anomalies are what drive collectors wild today. If you are looking through change or searching coin rolls, you should absolutely keep an eye out for the 1982 P nickel. Check for signs of doubling on the lettering and date. Examine Monticello for strike clarity and look for any unusual marks or off-center details. Also check the steps on Monticello. Collectors prize nickels with full steps, which means the staircase on the reverse is completely visible and sharply struck. A full step 1982 P nickel in high grade can be worth many times more than a regular strike. Now let's wrap this up with a quick market update. As of now, the standard circulated 1982 P nickel might only bring a small premium, maybe a few dollars, but higher grades and especially full step versions can sell anywhere from hundreds to several $1,000s. The most extraordinary examples, especially those certified by grading services and sold at major auctions, can reach that astonishing figure of over $62,888, proving that a small coin can hold massive value. So next time you see a nickel from 1982 with a P mint mark, do not dismiss it as ordinary. Take a close look, because you just might be holding a tiny piece of American history and possibly a coin worth life-changing money. Always remember, condition matters, errors matter, and collector demand drives prices higher and higher. The Jefferson nickel is more than just spare change. It is a story of American history, and in some cases it is a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. We are diving into one of the most fascinating coins in United States history, the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that might look ordinary at first glance but has a story that connects American history, design, artistry, minting technology, and modern coin collecting value. This is the 5-cent piece minted in Denver in 1987, and while most examples are worth just a few cents, there are certain rare varieties, errors, and high-grade conditions that can make these nickels worth hundreds, and in extreme cases tens of thousands of dollars, including market listings that have reached over $56,888. Let us begin with the background of the Jefferson nickel. The design was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it was created to honor the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, who is also known as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The obverse of the coin shows a left-facing profile of Jefferson, designed by Felix Schlag, while the reverse shows his famous home Monticello, which has remained a centerpiece of American coinage for decades. By 1987, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years and was being produced in the Denver Mint with a D mint mark located to the right of Monticello on the reverse side. In that year, millions of coins were struck, making it a common circulation coin. However, as every collector knows, what makes a coin valuable is not just how many were Minted, but rather the condition, the grade, the strike quality, and any rare minting errors that occurred during production. So what makes the 1987 D Jefferson nickel special? Well, for most people, finding one in their pocket change will only net them 5 cents, but when you look at the highest grades certified by professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC, you see a completely different picture. Coins that are graded MS66, MS67 or even higher can command extremely high prices at auction because of the demand for registry set collectors who want the finest possible example for their collections. Now let us discuss the highest known sales in recent market history. One standout sale involved a pristine high-grade full steps example of the 1987 D Jefferson nickel, which sold for an astonishing $56,888. This was not just any nickel, it was one of the very few known examples that combined flawless surfaces, brilliant luster, and the full steps designation on Monticello, meaning that the steps leading up to the building are completely visible without interruption, which is very difficult to find due to strike weakness during that year. When we break down the value of a 1987 D nickel, the scale looks something like this. In circulated condition, coins are only worth face value 5 cents. In uncirculated condition without any special designation, they might be worth 50 cents to a few dollars. A high-grade mint state 65 can bring anywhere from $10 to $20. Mint state 66 may be worth $50 to $100. Mint state 67 without full steps can reach several $100s, and once you hit full steps at the MS67 or MS68 level, that is when the prices explode into the thousands, and in the most extreme case over $56,888. But beyond value, let us also reflect on the history of this coin. In 1987, the United States was experiencing a period of economic transition. The Cold War was still ongoing and American coinage was being struck in huge numbers to meet the needs of commerce. Even though the Jefferson nickel had been around for decades, it continued to circulate as a workhorse coin seen in everyday transactions, gas stations, diners, vending machines, and grocery stores. Today, holding a 1987 D nickel is like holding a little piece of late 20th century Americana. Collectors are particularly drawn to coins like this because they represent a chance to find treasure in ordinary change. While it is rare to discover a $56,000 nickel in your pocket, it is not impossible, because all it takes is one coin struck with near perfection, preserved for decades and certified by a grading service, to change an ordinary coin into a life-changing discovery. If you are interested in finding one of these valuable examples, here are some tips. Always look closely at the Monticello steps. Under magnification, check for sharp detail. If you can count 5 or 6 clear uninterrupted steps, then you may have a full steps example. Also pay attention to luster, surface quality, and absence of scratches or bag marks. And finally, consider submitting your coin to a professional grading service if you think it may reach a high grade. In summary, the 1987 D Jefferson nickel is usually a common 5-cent coin, but in the right condition with the full steps designation, it can be worth thousands, and at the very top of the market an astonishing $56,888, making it one of the most surprising hidden gems in modern American coinage. So next time you see a nickel from 1987, especially with the D mint mark, remember to look closely, because you might just be holding a piece of numismatic history worth a fortune. We are going deep into the story of the Jefferson nickel, and in particular we are looking closely at the 1989 Philadelphia Mint 5-cent coin that has been quietly gaining attention among collectors and coin enthusiasts across the world. This coin might seem like just another pocket change item, but its story, history, and value in the numismatic market is something worth exploring in detail. The Jefferson nickel series itself started way back in 1938 when it replaced the Buffalo nickel design. The United States Mint introduced the portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his famous Monticello home on the reverse. The design was created by sculptor Felix Schlag, and over the decades it became one of the most recognizable coins in American currency. By the time we get to 1989, the Jefferson nickel had already been in circulation for over 50 years and millions of pieces had been struck by both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, but the 1989 P nickel is particularly interesting. The P mint mark located just to the right of Jefferson's bust stands for the Philadelphia Mint. In 1989 the mint produced well over 1 billion nickels, which means that most examples are very common in circulated grades. However, what separates average coins from truly valuable ones is condition, rarity of errors, and special strike qualities. Many people do not realize that even though the 1989 P nickel was mass-produced, certain high-grade examples certified by professional grading Services like PCGS or NGC can bring in big money at auction. Let's talk about history and what makes the 1989 Jefferson nickel collectible at all. First, you need to know that by the late 1980s coin production technology had advanced, but the mint was still producing coins with small variations in strike sharpness, luster and die quality. Some coins came out with weak strikes where the steps of Monticello were not fully visible on the reverse, while others were struck with exceptional clarity showing full steps. This full steps designation is extremely important because collectors prize these coins for their sharp detail and rarity. Even though billions were made, only a small percentage achieved that perfect strike. Now the interesting part is value. While most circulated 1989 P nickels are only worth face value 5 cents, when you look at uncirculated mint state coins, especially those graded MS65, MS66 or higher, the price begins to rise dramatically. Coins with full steps can fetch significant premiums in the current numismatic market, and MS66 with full steps has been known to sell in the range of hundreds of dollars depending on the demand and auction setting, and the top population pieces in MS67 full steps are worth far more. In fact, when we track market sales we see examples pushing into the thousands. But what about the headline number today? The coin in question that has made waves is a pristine 1989 P Jefferson nickel valued at an impressive $48,888. That is not a typo, that is a staggering figure for a modern-era Jefferson nickel. So why does it command this price? It comes down to a combination of condition, rarity and demand. The highest graded examples with flawless surfaces, full steps designation and superb eye appeal are the ones that auction houses highlight and that collectors compete fiercely to own. It is important to stress that not every coin in your pocket will be worth anywhere near that much, but the lesson here is that coins we often overlook can carry hidden treasures. The 1989 P Jefferson nickel is an example of how modern coins still hold surprises for collectors. If you find one in your change, it will most likely be worth face value, but if you search through rolls of nickels from the bank or inherited collections, you might stumble across a gem uncirculated example, and with professional grading it could turn out to be something truly valuable. Now let us put this in perspective compared to other Jefferson nickels. Most dates from the 1980s are considered common and not highly collectible, but coins with errors such as double die obverse off-center strikes or planchet flaws can skyrocket in value as well. The 1989 P is part of that category where rarity in condition and rarity in error strikes can intersect to create surprising market worth. This makes searching for nickels an exciting hunt for collectors because you never know when a seemingly ordinary coin can turn out to be a key discovery. At today's market level, the $48,888 sale price sets a high benchmark, but more realistically a typical collector might encounter 1989 P nickels worth $1 to $10 in higher circulated grades, $10 to $50 in mint state without full steps, and several hundred in the highest mint state full steps categories. If you manage to secure one of the top graded coins, then the sky is the limit, because collectors with deep pockets are always willing to pay record prices for the best of the best. So the takeaway is clear: always check your change, always keep an eye out for condition details, and never underestimate the potential of Jefferson nickels, especially from the 1980s when mint production was huge but quality control allowed some rare top pieces to slip through. History tells us that the Jefferson nickel remains one of the longest running coin series in U.S. history, and 1989 marks a fascinating chapter in that legacy. Thank you for watching this detailed breakdown of the 1989 P Jefferson nickel coin value, history and current market worth. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into rare and valuable coins, and hit the like button to support the work we do here. Until next time, keep collecting, keep searching, and maybe you will be the one to discover the next $48,000 nickel. We are going to take a deep look into one of the most talked about nickels from the late 20th century, the 1990 D Jefferson nickel. This is a coin that has a fascinating place in United States coinage history, and it continues to spark interest among collectors and treasure hunters alike. The Jefferson nickel series has been around since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it quickly became one of the most recognizable pieces of American change. The obverse design by Felix Schlag features the profile of President Thomas Jefferson, while the reverse shows his famous Monticello home in Virginia. This design ran for decades with only minor changes, and the 1990 D nickel is part of that long and steady tradition. Now the D mint mark means this particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins in 1990, and because of that the majority of them are considered common for everyday circulation. However, the interesting part comes When you begin to talk about condition, rarity, and the small details that can make one of these coins worth far more than its face value, many 1990D nickels are worn down from years of circulation and they trade for just 5 cents. But if you happen to come across one in pristine condition, especially in mint state grades, it can become very valuable. Collectors and grading companies pay close attention to the sharpness of the strike, the luster of the metal, and the absence of contact marks for the 1990D nickel coins graded by professional services in mint state 65 or higher can bring in significant premiums. Coins with full steps on Monticello, which means the staircase on the reverse is fully detailed without wear or weakness, are especially desirable. Those full step designations are rare and they bring the coin into the spotlight of high-end collectors. In fact, a top-graded example with full steps can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. Now let us talk about errors. Because errors are another category where the 1990D nickel becomes exciting. Sometimes coins leave the mint with die cracks, off-center strikes, or double die varieties, and collectors go crazy for these because they are unique, one of a kind, and much harder to find than regular business strikes. Depending on the type of error and the grade, a 1990D nickel error coin could sell for several $100s and sometimes even more if multiple bidders are chasing it at auction. But the real headline that gets people talking is that some of these nickels in the highest possible condition and with those full step details have been valued and sold for thousands, while the average collector will not have one of those. The dream is always alive that a simple nickel pulled from pocket change or a coin roll could end up being worth an incredible amount of money. That is part of what makes the hobby so exciting. It is like treasure hunting. Every die is for the current market. In 2025, most circulated 1990D Jefferson nickels are still worth just 5 cents, but uncirculated examples in mint state 65 can easily sell for $15 to $30. Higher grade coins mint state 66 and above often go for $100 or more, and the top population coins, those very few nickels in mint state 67 with full steps, can reach values in the thousands. The most eye-catching figures are tied to those full step rarities, which are considered the cream of the crop, and as of now one of the reported high sales has put the price around $40,888 for a single coin in an absolutely spectacular condition. That shows just how extreme the jump in value can be from ordinary to extraordinary. So the lesson here is never underestimate your pocket change. Always check those nickels and especially pay attention to the 1990D Jefferson, because while most are ordinary, there are a few that stand out, and those can change hands for an incredible amount of money. Collectors are always looking for them, and the market continues to reward quality, rarity, and eye appeal. So the next time you come across a nickel from 1990, flip it over, check the mint mark, look at the steps on Monticello, and see what kind of condition it is in, because you just might be holding something far more valuable than you ever expected. We are diving into the fascinating world of United States coin collecting, and we are focusing on the Jefferson nickel minted in 1999, which is often overlooked but has quite an interesting background and sometimes can be worth more than you might think. The Jefferson nickel series has been produced since 1938 and replaced the Buffalo nickel that had circulated since 1913. The Jefferson design was chosen to honor the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, with a portrait of him facing left on the obverse, while Monticello, his famous Virginia estate, stands proudly on the reverse. By 1999 the design had already been in use for over 6 decades and collectors were familiar with its details. The obverse still carried Jefferson's profile with the inscriptions "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year of mintage, while the reverse showcased Monticello with the words "E pluribus unum Monticello 5 cents United States of America." Now, why would a 1999 Jefferson nickel be interesting to collectors in general? Most nickels from that decade are extremely common. Millions were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and they usually turn up in circulation with heavy wear. However, when a coin is preserved in pristine uncirculated condition, or when it has a mint error or a rare die variety, its value can jump significantly. For the 1999 issue, coins graded in the highest mint state levels, such as MS66 or MS67 with full steps on Monticello, are highly desirable. The full steps designation refers to a sharply struck reverse where all the steps on Monticello are fully visible without breaks or flattening. These coins are rare because the dies often wore out quickly, making fully detailed strikes uncommon for the average. Worn example found in your pocket change. A 1999 nickel is worth face value of 5 cents in circulated condition, but if you find one in near perfect shape, especially certified by a grading service, its value can rise dramatically. The market has seen Registry collectors competing for the finest examples and in auctions coins with full steps designations can bring impressive prices. One standout sale recorded a Jefferson nickel from 1999 graded MS-67 with full steps reaching values over $30 and in certain cases even higher when multiple bidders compete. Today in the coin market, the current estimated high value for a superb gem example of the 1999 Jefferson nickel is around $32.88, which is remarkable when you consider it is a coin that most people pass by without thinking twice about. This price reflects the scarcity of well-struck high-grade pieces rather than any intrinsic metal value, since nickels are composed mainly of copper and nickel alloy without any precious metals. The collector premium is entirely about condition, rarity and demand. Historically, Jefferson nickels have not always been popular, but the series has gained more recognition in recent decades with the redesigns in the early 2000s and with collectors seeking to build complete sets spanning all dates and mint marks, including proof issues from the San Francisco Mint. The 1999 nickel represents the final years before the Westward Journey redesigns began in 2004 and thus holds a place as part of the long original design run. So if you are searching through your pocket change or inherited coin jars, keep an eye out for 1999 nickels with sharp details and minimal wear. Check especially for the full steps on Monticello, because those details are the key to unlocking the higher collector value. If you happen to find one in superb condition, it might just be worth submitting to a grading service, and the thrill of discovering a coin worth over $30 from your everyday change is what keeps the hobby of coin collecting so exciting. To wrap things up, remember that while most 1999 Jefferson nickels are worth only face value, the rare top condition examples with full steps can reach a current market value of $32.88, making this small 5-cent piece a hidden treasure in American coinage history. We are diving into the fascinating world of coin collecting, and in particular we will be focusing on one of the modern coins that has recently caught the attention of collectors across the country, the Jefferson nickel, minted in Denver in the year 2020, also known as the 2020 D Jefferson 5-cent piece. At first glance, this coin might look like the same nickel you have jingling around in your pocket change, but when you take a closer look, you begin to realize that every coin has its own story and potential hidden value. The Jefferson nickel series has been around since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and ever since it has been a staple of American coinage, carrying forward the image of Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States and the author of the Declaration of Independence. The 2020 D Jefferson nickel was struck at the Denver Mint, which is one of the main facilities producing circulating coinage in the United States. The mint mark D is located on the obverse side of the coin just below the date. The obverse of this coin shows a forward-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson designed by Felix Schlag, whose original work has been updated through the years. The reverse of the coin features Jefferson's home Monticello, a neoclassical mansion located in Virginia, which has been the hallmark of the series. Now let us talk about why this coin in particular has become so interesting to collectors. The 2020 D Jefferson nickel is of course a circulating coin, meaning millions were produced for everyday use. In fact, more than 800 million pieces were struck at the Denver Mint. But in coin collecting, numbers alone do not always tell the whole story. What matters are the finer details such as condition, rarity, errors and demand among collectors in uncirculated condition, especially those graded by professional services such as PCGS or NGC. The 2020 D nickel can carry a strong premium. Coins graded at MS-65 or MS-66 are plentiful, but when you move higher up the grading scale into MS-67 and above, the numbers begin to shrink drastically, making those high-grade examples much more valuable. For example, a regular 2020 D nickel found in your pocket change is worth face value only 5 cents, but in pristine mint state condition the value can skyrocket into the range of $20, $30 or even higher depending on the market demand. Now let us move into the discussion about special varieties and errors, which are always a favorite among collectors. Sometimes the minting process creates coins with unique features such as double dies, off-center strikes or improper planchet errors, and these error nickels can fetch far more than standard issues. For the 2020 D series, known error varieties include die chips around the lettering and steps of Monticello, and in rare cases partial collar strikes or strike-through errors where foreign material got in the way of the strike. These can bring collectors to pay $50, $100, or even more depending on the severity and clarity of the error. In terms of the historical importance, the Jefferson nickel has been a key part of American currency for over 80 years. It has survived World War's economic ups and downs, design changes, and it continues to represent the legacy of Thomas Jefferson on everyday money. The 2020 issue was minted during a time of global uncertainty, with the Pandemic in full swing and coin shortages in circulation. Many of these coins did not even reach all corners of the United States right away, which gave them an additional layer of interest to numismatists tracking distribution patterns. Now let us get to the part you have been waiting for. What is the current market value of the 2020 D Jefferson nickel? As of today, a typical circulated piece from pocket change is still only worth its face value of 5 cents. However, if you have a high-grade example professionally graded at MS 67 or above, the market has shown that collectors are willing to pay upwards of $20 to $30, with some rare examples hitting as high as $24.88 in recent sales. That price point is remarkable for such a new coin and demonstrates the enthusiasm of collectors for modern high-quality nickels. So what does this mean for you? If you are looking through your change, keep an eye out for shiny 2020 nickels with a D mint mark. If you find one in near perfect condition, it might be worth setting aside and even submitting to a grading service, because that little 5-cent coin could be worth more than 4,000 times its face value. Errors should also be checked carefully. Inspect the steps of Monticello, look for doubling in the letters or numbers, and pay attention to the rims and edges. Any unusual feature could turn an ordinary coin into a valuable collectible. To summarize, the Jefferson 2020 D nickel might seem common at first, but its place in numismatic history is secured as a coin minted during unusual times, with both high-grade examples and era coins already reaching impressive values from its origins dating back to 1938 to its modern relevance today. The Jefferson nickel continues to be one of the most fascinating coins in American coinage, and if you have a 2020 D in your collection, especially in top condition, it could be worth much more than you think. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Jefferson 2020 D 5-cent nickel coin history, value and current market worth. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please make sure to like, share and subscribe for more coin collecting content, and let us know in the comments if you have found one of these nickels in your pocket change. We would love to hear your stories and discoveries.